Want to say thank you to those that submitted pictures. We've got them on display. It was fun to look at some of that fun stuff. All right, a couple things you're never going to hear Dad say on Father's Day. One will be, you'll never hear Dad look at his 17-year-old son and say, hey, here are the keys to my Ford 350. Go take it for a spin. You're never going to hear that, okay? Second thing you'll never hear Dad say on Father's Day is look at his wife and say, honey, I'm feeling really generous today. I got the plastic out. Why don't we go shopping? You know, that's probably not going to happen either, all right? Father's Day goes back about 70-some years to a lady who just had a mom and saw what had been happening for moms, honoring moms on Mother's Day. She petitioned, actually worked his way, I believe, to Roosevelt, and he set aside the third Sunday in June as a day to recognize fathers. Here's what I want to say real briefly. I get it. I understand there's a gamut of people here and watching online. Some of you had terrific dads. Some of you, this is a great day. It's a fun day. You look back. There's a lot of laughter. There's a lot of good memories. Some of you, I was reading this week where the stats are today. 1 in 4 kids does not have their biological father in the home. 25% of kids don't have their biological father in the home. That's the highest it's ever been. To give you some idea, 40 years ago, that number was 10%. So that's how it's increased. Some of you would say Father's Day is sort of a painful time, and they just don't have, you know, there's just not a lot of joy there, and I just recognize we're across the spectrum here, okay? What I want us to do today, and looking at this idea of, though, I think it's not just dads who can be sticky, okay? It's all of us can be, you know, I'm calling it duct tape dads, but it's really all of us to be the kind of people that are influenced, useful of God to, you know, what's duct tape do? Okay, duct tape. If you're not aware, duct tape was invented. The story goes in World War II, as they were shipping ammunition boxes to the guys on the front line, they were having to dip them in tar to keep them to keep them sealed, as well as to keep them moisture resistant. The problem was, if you were under fire and you're now trying to open this box that's been pitched in tar, it might be cumbersome. And so in the course of that, a mom who had 2 boys in the war came up with this solution, sent it to the president, said, hey, we could seal boxes with this thing called duct tape. And in 1943, the president said, let's run with this, let's make this happen, and that is the history of duct tape. I found out that duct tape has been used, Apollo 13, they had an emergency on the flight with the carbon dioxide filter. They used duct tape to patch it. Duct tape has been used. Duct tape is like a staple in the military. Duct tape is one of those things that, if you think about it, is the reason it is so valuable is it is sticky, right? You can use it on just about anything. It's durable. The thing holds. I thought it was interesting. The only thing that duct tape doesn't work well on is ductwork. Does not work well on ductwork. Don't wrap your pipes with it, okay? But other than that, this stuff is like gold, okay? And so I was thinking, okay, well, as I think about guys, as I think about all of us, though, I think we all want to be people who stick. I don't think any of us wants to be seen as something that's ineffective, right? So I'm thinking about that. I came to this passage in Thessalonians. If you have a Bible, if you've got your app, let me read to you the scripture. Paul wrote this young church. It's one of the earliest letters in the New Testament in 1 Thessalonians chapter 2. He's reminding them of the time that he spent with them on a second missionary journey, okay? That's the context. And so I'm going to pick up the reading halfway through verse 6. He says, as apostles of Christ, we could have been a burden to you, but we were gentle among you like a mom who cares for her little kids. We loved you so much that we were delighted to share with you not only the gospel of God, but our lives as well, because you had become so dear to us. Surely you remember, brothers, our toil and hardship. We work night and day in order not to be a burden to anyone while we preach the gospel of God to you. You are witnesses, and so is God, of how holy, righteous, and blameless we were among you who believed. For you know that we dealt with each of you as a father deals with his own children, encouraging, comforting, and urging you to live lives worthy of God who calls you into his kingdom and glory. It was right up here. This church was formed. It was a significant town. It was Chicago. It was New York. It was LA. It was a port city. It was the capital of the region at the time. What you can't see is going out of here was Interstate 75. Those of you know the interstate system that goes from Florida to Michigan. Going out of there was a major road that went north. So it was a town that was very influential, and when Paul shows up, he started talking about Christ. A church is formed, and out of that church then becomes a place where the gospel, the good news of Jesus, just starts moving. It was a religious town. You could find just about any kind of religion you wanted there. They weren't just like a church town. They were very much a town that was looking for, searching for. That's what I think people who are religious, they're searching for something. They're looking for something. These people were looking for something. And into that vacuum comes the message of Christ. And Paul, now writing to them, says, hey, I want you just to remember what we were like when we were with you. And the imagery he draws to mind is that of a mom and a father. All the things he could choose, he chooses relationships that we're all familiar with. Now, Sean, spot on. I'm looking at the clock. You're looking at the clock. Let me just give you a couple things here that I think are true of people who stick, okay? And one of the things that struck me is that they are strong yet flexible people. Paul says here that he was gentle among them. Gentle is the idea of strength under control. To be gentle is like a horse that's tamed. To be gentle is like the Mississippi River flowing in its banks. Tremendous power, generates electricity. But if it gets out of control, bad things happen. And if you live with a father that was ever out of control, you know bad things happen. So Paul says, hey, I want to remind you that one of the things of sticky people is this, that they are strong people, but they are within bounds. They use that strength to help. I found it interesting here that he says, we cared for you like a mom cares for her kids. If you ever watched, as I have, I've watched Kirsten with James. I watch mothers with their children. And they are loving and doting and like, man, spot on, but you go to harm their kids? You ever watch a mama bear? Man, just you do not want to be in their way, right? And Paul's saying we were like that among you. We were gentle among you like a mom is, but man, we cared for you. We loved you. And I find that people who stick, dads, if I speak to us men who last with their kids are going to be men who care, who genuinely are strong, physically, mentally, emotionally. I get that. But there's also an element of tenderness and compassion about you. You really care about what's going on in your kids. It's not your career. It's your kids. God has given you your children. God's given you your wife. God has given you your friends. One of the hardest things that I think we as men deal with is that it is true, statistically it is true, that men tend to be loners. We don't invite people in. You go to work to escape. You go to work to try and climb a ladder, wanting the appreciation that you think is going to come, only to have them say, oh man, sorry. Guys who stick can be tough and tender. They have an ear. They make time. They want to listen. They care about. I was thinking of that in terms of, I read a statistic that said that one of the benefits of why it matters for dads to be involved. Thought this was interesting stuff here. Comes from the National Fatherhood Initiative. They have done the studies that show that dads who are involved in the lives of their kids and their families are happier. Men who tend to be loners are not as happy. Dads who are involved in the lives of their kids are better physically. They are healthier. They live longer. Dads who are involved in the lives of their kid reduce the likelihood that that kid is going to get involved with drugs, alcohol, and sex. Dads who are distant from their kids have a greater likelihood of getting messed up. Dads who are involved with their kids give their kids an emotional edge over those kids whose dads are not there, because they help their kids feel secure. They help their kids feel safe. They help their family feel safe because you're present. Dads who are there for their kids tend to be financially better off than dads who are loners out there abandoning their kids. I mean, all the things that we as men say we want, health, money, people looking at us, are found in being men who are present in the lives of their family, in the lives of their friends, on their job. And the things that you think you want, that you chase, when you chase them, you find out you get there and then like the rungs are cut out from underneath you. Dads who stick are strong, yet they're flexible. The other thing that I noted here with the dads who stick is that, here it is, they lead the way. Paul says here that they were, you watched us. Surely you remember, brothers, our toil and our hardship. We work night and day. You saw us. Dads who stick are examples. They're models. Anybody ever mess with model cars? I mean, how many of you do jigsaw puzzles? Anybody? Jigsaw puzzle? How many of you, when you do a jigsaw puzzle, you have the picture out in front of you? Or do you just start like assembling the pieces? Why do you have the picture there? Because you want to see what it's like. Here's what we do, men. Men, when we lead the way, we show our kids and our family what's possible. It says here that they were holy. That is, that they were, Paul said that we were just blameless in the sight of God. Not perfect, but we were right with God. We were humble before God. It says here that we were righteous. That is to be right in the eyes of the law. It means to be right with people. And then it just says that we were blameless, that we were people of integrity, that our word meant something. I don't really want to, you know what? I get where we are. We've got to sign contracts now because your word's not good enough. Because you might find a reason why you don't keep your word. I think men who stick are men that if you tell me you're going to do it, I count on you to do it. And the worst thing in my world, this is just a Mike thing, the worst thing in my world is to tell me you'll do something and then you don't do it. Because I'm like, that's just your bond. That's just your word. Our words used to mean something. And now we got to back it up and we got a pinky swear. And we got, just tell me you're going to do it. Tell me you're not going to do it. Right? Let's lead the way. Let's show people, let's show our kids what it's like to walk with God. Let's show our kids what it's like to live a life that's blameless. I'm not being political. This is not a political statement. But that guy who killed 2 legislatures yesterday, who preached in churches, has nothing to say. I don't care how many sermons he stood up in front of people and preached. He took 2 lives yesterday. The man threw his 50-some years out the window. However rationally you can rationalize what he didn't do this. He didn't lead the way. And he threw it all away. For what? For your opinion on politics? You cashed it all in. Forever, your kids are going to be known as, oh, you're the kid of the dad who went and shot a couple of guys. That's your legacy now. Men, we need to think seriously of the message that we want to leave behind us, because we're going to leave it. And what is it that you want to be known for? What do you want your kids to think of you when they think of dad, when they think of grandpa? Paul's saying, you saw us. You watched us. We didn't take anything from you. We worked our tails off so just to teach you about Jesus. And the best thing that sticky dads can do is leave for your kid a picture of what it's like. I have a dear friend. His son is now probably approaching 30. His son was asked why he does a quiet time. And you know what his answer was? Because I would often see my dad. I would often see my dad at 5 in the morning in front of the Word studying. They show the studies that dads who are in church are more likely to have their kids in church. That may not mean a hill of beans to you. You might not care about religion. But I am asking you, what is it that you do care about? Because your kids are watching. And you'll never have to say anything to them. They'll just pick up on it. I think I've shared with some of you before that as my kids, we have 4, as they were growing up, every night I would tell them I loved them before they went to bed. Do you know why I did that though? Because, well, that's what dads do. No, I did that because, as I've told you before, I was 19 years old and going off to my second year of college before I ever heard my dad tell me that he loved me. 19 years old, that's when the first time I remember my dad saying that he loved me. And I remember crying for an hour and a half and angry, like, we just had it. Why did you do that? And it resonated with me because that's the first time I heard it. And we talk about guys who have father wounds. What is that? That is dads who have been absent or mean or cruel or whatever. They led away. So you know what I determined? I determined my kids were not going to be 19 before they heard dad say that he loved them. That's why I told my kids that. My kids weren't going to grow up the same way I did. See, you can learn from a bad example just as much as you can a good example. But you're sitting here this morning, and you and I, we've got the chance to begin to set the record. What is it I want my kids to know about me? Because I'm going to lead them in that path. Because they're watching. How many of you are country western fans? What's that, Rodney Atkins? He's got that song about a son who uses a 4-letter word. He said, where'd you learn that? Because I've been watching you, Dad. A little bit later, he sees his son beside the bed praying. He said, where'd you learn to pray? Because I've been watching you, Dad. Don't underestimate that your kids are watching. Your grandkids are looking. And they're looking to see how you handle adversity. They're looking to see how you handle success. They're looking to see how you handle your walk with God. They're looking to see what kind of person you are in the job. I read an interesting piece of a guy who employs 500 people at his plant. He's the owner, operator, a construction firm. And he was asked, when you hire an employee, what do you look for? Guys hire thousands of people. What do you look for? What stands out to you? You know what he said? He said, I look primarily at the relationship between the man and his dad. If he felt loved by his dad and respected his authority, he's likely to be a good employee. I won't hire a man who's been at odds with his dad because he will have difficulty with me too. I have found that the relationship between a boy and his father sets the tone for the rest of his life. I would have never guessed that because we're our own men, right? Right? Those of you who are younger, right? Got nothing to do with your dad, right? Where'd you learn to take orders? Where'd you learn what authority is like? Where'd you learn what it was like to do the job complete? I was talking to a friend of a local church. The guy's in charge of the men's ministry at that local church. This was interesting. They got about, I think, 40 guys that show up for a Bible study. He's had a chance to have a lunch or dinner with each of the 40 guys. One of the things he revealed, I thought this was sad, but interesting. These are church guys, not guys not going to church. These are church guys going to a Bible study. Of the 40 guys, half of them have no relationship with their kids. Church guys, no relationship with their kids, at odds with their kids, not speaking to one of their kids. That's a lot for church guys. How does it get like that? I think it gets like that when we fail to see that we need to lead the way for our kids. We need to model what forgiveness is. Do you have a grudge right now with a mom or a dad and you're not speaking to them? Can I ask you why not? Are you waiting for them to pick up the phone and call you? Is that what you're waiting for? Is there a reason you're not picking up the phone and calling? Maybe you've tried. I get that. Maybe you're sitting there saying, it's not my business. Our families need to see us model what grace, forgiveness, stick-to-itiveness, godliness looks like. We can talk about it. Hey, the Bible says what they need to see is it in us. They need to see us live it out. The third thing that I think that dads do that stick to it is they cheer their family on. Look what he says here. You are witnesses of our holy, righteous, blameless life we live. For you know we were like a father deals with his own kid. And then he talks about how a father deals with his own children. Encouraging, comforting, and urging. Encouraging means to come alongside and just like, man, you can do this. You got this. It's really like a coach. I love when I see men and women on the field coaching and coaching well. They're not like chewing on their kids. They're trying to say, man, we got this. I do a lot of baseball games. Coach, they're coming off. They may have given up 2 or 3 runs. They're down. And the coach gets everybody together. All right, we need to win this inning. Hey, let's go this inning. Let's string some hits together. They're just trying to cheer their kids on, right? Encourage there has to do with like letting your kids know that you're there. If cheering is to encourage and push them on, when he says here that comfort means to like console, like come alongside and say it's going to be okay. Just reminding them that there's a side of this that it's going to be all right. I remember when our Eric was in a soccer tournament and they made it to the semi and he took out a kid in the goalie box in the second overtime, which led to a PK, and they scored, and basically Eric's team lost the game. And my kid was the kid who took out the player that allowed the penalty kick. And he was devastated. He was ready to quit. Just going to ask you, in that moment, what do you do, dads? What's going through your head when your kid feels like he's the one, and he is the one? There's no other way to say it. They lost because of a penalty kick, because you took a kid out. And all I could think of is I was trying to just chat with him on the deck. I still remember chatting with him on the deck. This was probably his first taste of real failure, and it won't be his last. And that's what I need him to know. You're going to fail. And you're going to fail because you tried. And how many of you have experienced failure and you quit? You quit because failure hurts. It stings. And so you shut down and you quit trying. And in that moment, what you need is someone to urge you. Urging means to kick you in the butt and say, we need to go. It's time to get up. You've licked your wounds enough. Let's go. Urging means you're going to speak the truth. I'm watching the U.S. Open. Anybody else watching the U.S. Open? They made a big deal of showing Scotty Scheffler having it with his coach. That little give and take and exchange back and forth. I thought it was interesting. Brooks Coppola they were interviewing him about an exchange that he had with his coach. And Brooks said, you know what? It's only happened maybe one other time, and I needed it. He's getting in my face. I needed it. Scheffler was listening to his coach saying, man, and you could just see the tension back and forth. Because sometimes, here's what you need to do, moms and dads, if you're going to stick to it, is you're going to encourage your kid, you're going to encourage someone you love, like, man, get up. Yeah, I know it hurts. You're going to go to practice. We're going to go to church today, right? My kid wanted to quit halfway through a season because his friend was quitting. He came to me, he said, Dad, I don't want to play anymore. I don't want to play for this coach. Coach a jerk. I don't want to play anymore. What do? You know what Warman did? I said, you're not going to quit. You signed up for a year. You only got to make it till May. At the end of May, if you want to quit that team, that's on you. But at this point, I paid some money for you to play, and you're going to show up, and you're going to do your best. Because why? Because you're going to come to a job at some point, you're going to want to quit. Because the boss is going to be too hard. You're not going to like the person you work next to. That's the stuff of life. And people need to be reminded that this is really what the world's like. So like a father would encourage his kid, comfort his kid, cheer his kid on, and sometimes say, no, that's not the path. I was thinking of my kids. We take celebrating kind of seriously here. This is, some of you don't know because they're in other parts of the world, this is my boys. This is Joe, he's our third. I made it so that here's Eric, he's our oldest. This is a group of guys, this is Ryan and Danny and Eric and a friend back there that he just to be named later. I want to show you this though. So Joe has taken over managing High Five by Upshot, a coffee shop in Clayton. Okay? His first time ever being a manager at age 30. They put him in charge of the store. I'm like, being his dad. He doesn't watch, so I don't care. I'm good, right? But Clayton sent him a little card here recently that said they've only been open since, I think, the first of the year. So it's only been 6 months. They said, hey, voted best of Clayton. I thought that was pretty cool. They downplayed it, They wanted to, for $500, Clayton would send him a trophy. I thought, wow. So you know what I did? For $80 out of my pocket, I had an acrylic trophy made. I said, voted best of Clayton, because it was true. I said, I'm willing to do this. Are you going to think it's cheesy? Like, if you're going to just take it and throw it in the trash, I'm not going to spend my $80. It's like, let me ask the boss. So he asked the boss, he calls me. It's like, Dad, that'd be cool. Yeah. I'm like, okay, then it's done. So I went down there, and his boss was there, and I presented them a trophy, best of Clayton. I got nothing to do with Clayton, but it's on display down there. Because I want to cheer them on. I want to reward that. Right? I got back into golf. You know when I got back into golf? I like the game. I'm not good at the game. But those guys behind me, they like playing. And I like spending time with them. I want to cheer them on. I got a chance to have conversations on a golf course that maybe you can't have in other spots. I read this week a story of a 16-year-old that was getting into it with his mom. That might shock you. That never happens, I know. Okay? 16-year-old and mom are having some difficulty. And it's getting a little heated, and Dad sees it. Now, what is Dad supposed to do now? Moms, what do you want Dad to do? You're getting into it with your son. What do you want your husband to do? You want your husband to shut him down and back you up. Absolutely, hands down, right? You know what the dad does? The dad says to his boy, come on, let's go out and shoot hoops. And the mom, by her words, was ticked. The mom was ticked, like, you are not backing me up here. What is going on? You're going to go shoot hoops with him? They shot hoops for an hour and came back in all sweaty. You know what? The boy came in and he apologized to his mom. They talked afterwards. She said, why did you do that? He said, you know what? He needed to blow off some steam. He's an adolescent male. He needed to blow off some steam. This was a good way to do it. We got a chance to talk while we were out there shooting hoops. That's knowing how to comfort and encourage your kid. I don't want to leave my girls out. I don't know, that was good. This is Kirsten. You see her with James and Danny. When COVID hit, Kirsten was with Arch Apparel in the city. And as I recall, that Lou Fest was the big deal that was going to happen, big downtown thing, but they postponed it because of COVID. And Kirsten pitched the idea to her employees, why don't we have like a big open tent thing and we invite people here? And in about 3 days' time, she got DJs, she got the word out, and they had probably 1,000 people in this little bitty like tin building. And they did what they could, and she was the spearhead behind that. She just did a project with Build-A-Bear where they invited former students back into city schools and had those students read the kids and give each of the kids a bear. That is awesome. That's what you want from your kids. And now as I watch her be a mom, I watch her and Danny be parents, our goal as grandparents needs to be to cheer them on and give them all the tools that they need. And if that's out of your wallet, that's your wallet. If that's your time, if that's your encouragement, hey, you can do this. That's what we need to be about. Those are people that are going to stick. Or you can be a loner, and you can go it your way, and you can live in your little shell, and that's fine, and one day we'll put you in a box. And we'll mourn for a little bit, and you will have had no lasting value. You want significance. You want to know that you mattered. I'm telling you, this is how you do it. Casey was voted Teacher of the Year last year at her school. And they told me that. And they said, I remember this. They're like, and they're just going to like present her with something at lunch. And Patty's like, do you want to go? And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty busy. And I'm being serious. I'm like, this just feels like one of those Hallmark things, you know? And I really had to stop and say, whoa, wait. Tell me a little bit more. Okay, this is sort of a big deal. Like in her building, she's Teacher of the Year. Yeah, I want to be there. Now see, she's married to Ryan. Ryan was going to be there. Her mom was going to be there. But you know what? I had to come to my senses and say, as dad, I want to be there because she's still my kid. I want my kids to know I got their back and I'm there for them. That's what I think you want dads for your kids and your grandkids. Are you going to be there, or are you going to be like the half of people at another church that aren't speaking to one of them? That's your call. That's not their call, that's you. What are we doing to break that down so that we can actually be dad to stick, dad to have an influence, men who make a difference in the lives of those that they love? That's what I think Christ calls us to do. Why? So that they would live a life worthy of the God who calls them. Because there's a God who loves them. Jesus wants the best for them. How will they know that? Because we're going to doggone make sure that I did everything in my power, everything by the grace of God they've given me to make that message stick with them. I can preach to them. I can show them. I can show them. I think Christ calls us to show them as well as tell them. Team's coming back up. I heard about a story of a guy. His son's maybe 13. He was called to the stage of a large gathering of men, and as the story goes, on the stage were a variety of different traps. Rodent traps. There was a large bear trap. Any of you guys who hunt know that there are just different kinds of things that are laid out here. And the idea was for the father to speak to his kid and get his kid from one side of the stage to the other, with about 10,000 guys out here. So there's a little bit of noise, right? And so as the boy begins to walk, he gets to be about from here to here is a bear trap. And the dad yells at him, yells his name, "Stephen, stop! Stop!" And Stephen stops. And the dad walks out, and he whispers something to him. And then the dad gets in front of him, and Stephen puts his hand on his dad's shoulder. And you know how Stephen got the rest of the way across the stage unharmed? He kept his hand on his dad's shoulder as his dad navigated the traps. Men, that's what we're called to do. We're called to lead the way. We're called to those that we love, whether it be our kids, our grandkids, our wives, our friends, to say, hey, put your hand on my shoulder. Just walk where I walk. Let me lead you through this. Guys who do that, you'll leave a legacy. You'll get what you want, which is respect, which is people looking you in the eye and thinking, you did a good job, Dad. Thank you. Thanks for being there. That's what you want. That's what a paycheck can't buy you. Let's sing with the team of this last song.